Hello everybody, it's MicheleMarieDalene. Hello, Mayor Meet. This July 14th, 2014. Today, of course, is Monday. And, of course, we got a couple of different things to talk to you about. Including, coming up, I think it's today, will be a replay of Under the Dome by Stephen King on CBS. Now, I don't know if they're going to be replaying all of the episodes. I do have it set to record the episodes so I can watch it. Under the Dome premises, it's a story of a town that's basically being protected by a mysterious dome that comes out of nowhere. It actually covers not just the top above ground, but the dome apparently also covers subterranean areas as well. So the city, just like a Martian colony, is totally isolated from the outside world. Nothing gets through, no radio, no TV, and certainly no people. It's actually interesting to bring up the dome because of, in the city of Dubai, the United Arab Emirates wants to build a dome-like structure to allow in the world's biggest mall, 5 times bigger than the existing mall in Dubai, to have a huge area of covered walkways allowing for refrigeration and, of course, temperature control to allow people in the summertime, spring, and early autumn to go between buildings in temperature controlled comfort. Its whole purpose is also to keep people safe from the grittiness of sandstorms, the high oppressive heat, and the arid, dry air. In the wintertime, these overpasses, if you will, these covered walkways will be open to allow for the cooler December atmosphere to allow for people to enjoy some of the natural desert environment while still protecting them from the worst of the worst. And of course, with the sandstorm protection, it's going to make it easier for people who may be sensitive to high dust concentrations. It also will make it easier to keep this area clean. This giant indoor dome-like walkways would connect a huge mall together, including a wellness section for medical care, as well as other tourist attractions. It's big, real big. And by the time I think it's going to be done being built, it'll probably be about 2016, 2017. It may not be a Martian model of a city, but it's certainly going to be the first biggest dome in the world. Of Earth, that is. So Under the Dome, the TV show by Stephen King, in some ways is more of a model of a Martian dome. This dome that's being built in Dubai, in some ways, it's more like using a tube system. Not just for people walking, but also for automobiles. How cool is that? Really cool. And not only that, but of course, coming on today, the temperature will be high here in Winston, Connecticut, over a high of 30 degrees Celsius. However, tomorrow the expected high will be about 28 degrees. Oh, we're talking about Tuesday. Also coming up in arts entertainment, A&E, is a new TV show called Lone Star Lady, which is actually sounds kind of interesting. It's about a woman named Rochelle who basically struck rich finding oil. And now, this very large, voluptuous beauty happens to have to raise her family despite changing times. And if you like more voluptuous babes, you can certainly watch more of Hollywood Hillbillies, which will be coming up on August 5th. Or you can see Dee Dee and her husband, John, what's his name? I forgot too. Anyway, her and her husband there, enjoying the wonderful features and hospitality of Mima, Mike Cottrell, Uncle Johnny, and they're all cool. Yeah, that's gonna be cool. And don't forget too that coming up in September, unsure of the air date, will be the new Once Upon a Time, starring the character names of Elsa, Anna, Kristoff, and here's an interesting twist. They hired a 4th actress to play the Ice Queen. Ice Queen. So, in other words, Elsa is going to be there, but there's also going to be another lady playing an Ice Queen. Yes. Okay. So, obviously, there has been several people over the year that have suggested that possibly that Elsa's powers may have been a curse passed on by another woman, to possibly Elsa was actually an illegitimate child born by somebody else instead of Ilhun, which is the name of her mother in the movie Frozen. We'll find out which one it will be in a short time. Coming up today, Michelle and I will be going through our wiring and cleanup of the computer network again. It's funny, even though the computer hasn't actually been physically moved, it seems like it keeps getting wrapped up in electrical cords. Don't ask me why, it just does. So we have to take it apart, unplug it all, and reorganize and regroup. Some of you also might be wondering if we're going to ever stream a live stream on the radio. The answer to your question right now is not necessarily feasible to do a video stream, but an audio stream could be done. But with the new requirements of paying royalties for live streaming music, it's just gotten to be too expensive. So live streaming radio, unless it's just yakking crap, ain't gonna work. Nope. If it's a little private deal between you and a couple friends, and then Sound Exchange doesn't have to know about it, the DMCAA doesn't have to know about it, and then probably no one will even make a big stink about it. But at this point, we wanted to go more than just a few friends, but our bandwidth isn't there to do that. Correct. Also, Ed and Tony have left the building, as I've said in a few other videos before, and they are quietly enjoying their nice new location out of town. They've asked me not to divulge the location, so I will not do so. But I can tell you right now that, as the landlord said to me, he says, it's kind of stupid that they're paying so much money for rent when originally Ed was only paying $150 on Section 8. But then again, you have to remember that there has been no love lost between the two. It turns out after a while, Ed and Jimmy had gotten into a major brouhaha and never even resolved it. They couldn't resolve it because, unfortunately, these two headstrong men just couldn't seem to come to understanding on anything. And Jimmy basically likes to have control because technically he's got the title to the property, which means, yeah, he's got control. Indeedly so. Unfortunately, Ed does not like having somebody else control, and, well, you can see what happens. The sparks fly in a very explosive way, and resulting basically in Ed having to make the ultimate sacrifice of getting out. Well, Tony was already going to be thrown out because she missed a month's rent. So, therefore, it was very simple. He loved Tony, so he moved in with Tony into a residential hotel outside of town. So that's the story. Sherry Heaton gave me this, but I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do with it. It's a toy, but what are you supposed to do with this? It's supposed to be a little fox character, but the colors kind of look like a fish. It's not a fish. It's not a fish, but it's got, it's just kind of stupid. It's just a toy. It's just a little toy. Speaking of toys, the Elsa toys from the Frozen are outselling the Anna toys. It turns out that Elsa has become extremely popular, not only for young girls who want to look like Elsa in real life, but also for young men who find her attractive. In fact, for the boys, Elsa was more popular because of her sex appeal. But for some men, they could understand her hardships that they were facing, because they were probably facing similar hardships themselves. Elsa seems to have a very strong calling, especially for people who have depression and mental illness, as they can begin to understand the character as they go through their own coming out situations, from depression to homosexuality. Very much right indeed. Of course, for young men that don't have those hang-ups, of course, find her appealing. However, it's not just the men. No, it's not. In fact, young girls and old girls, hint hint, also find Elsa to be quite alluring as well. In fact, there's been many takeoffs that I've seen of her coming down the stairs using music by Marvin Gaye and from Wham, including pieces of Careless Whisper, to show her sex appeal as she was coming down the stairs, as Anna was watching her and looking at her sister with total shock and amazement at her beauty. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Also, other news, not so exciting, of course. As I said, it will be cooling down a little bit tomorrow. Tomorrow will be high about 28, and then it will cool down for a few days down to a high of 25 and then a 23 degrees, which means we'll be able to get more chores done. Indeed. Today, of course, is the soup kitchen. It is Monday, and I hope to be there. But Michelle last night slept for 24 hours straight, just getting up to use the bathroom. That's right. We slept for 24 hours straight because there was nothing to do on Sunday. It's kind of like Johnny Cash's song, Sunday Morning Coming Down. Except I don't drink, so I did not have beer for breakfast, and I sure to hell didn't have a beer for dessert. But basically everything else is the same. There's something about a Sunday that makes a person feel alone. So, instead of wasting my day twiddling my thumbs, I figured I'd just sleep it in. So I slept it in, woken up only time just to feed the kitties, take trip to the bathroom, and then, of course, go back to bed. And then at about 12 noon, midnight, Michelle woke up, watched Cutthroat Kitchen, and then, of course, is now doing the show. Exactly so. Also, coming up in the next few days, we're going to be doing some more housework. We got some things to do, we got more cleaning to do, and, of course, as the temperatures will drop into more civil tones, we'll be able to do so. But today we want to talk to you also about something a little more significant. What that is the issue of advice. People sometimes ask people for advice about things in their lives, and then they expect people to give honest advice to the best of their ability. But instead of looking at their advice critically and looking at if this advice is good or bad, they either just throw the advice out the window or blindly follow it. Unfortunately, in the case of Ed, he did not even follow any of my advice, except the very last piece of advice, which is out of desperation when I told him that he clearly had no way he was going to win out of the situation with Jimmy, and that he should just quietly leave the premises, which he did. However, let's talk about this. If you basically give somebody a piece of advice and they don't follow it, and then they have the nerve to blame you for that advice that they didn't follow in the first place, you should rightfully point out to them that you gave the advice based on your ability to look at the situation. And if they choose not to follow the advice, it's their problem, not yours. Exactly so. In fact, Michelle, let me ask you a question. What do you think would be the next piece of advice you would give Ed? Keep paying your rent where you are now. Keep your nose clean. Don't make excuses. You got everything you need right now. Your possessions are safe, and that as long as you're in good terms with the new person who's your landlord, I don't think you're going to have a problem. Where they are now is there's no maximum stay period. They could stay there indefinitely, but they'll still have to pay rent. Exactly. And it's not $150 on Section 8. Because it is a residential hotel, they don't take Section 8. So, that's what comes down to that. Also, Michelle's weight is still dropping. It's right. My weight is still coming down. In fact, here's the funny thing. Despite the fact is that I have been eating a lot of fatty goods, it turns out it's not so much the fat that makes you gain pounds. It's something very surprisingly different. It's sucrose. It's good old table sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Especially bad as high fructose corn syrup, which basically really makes your liver gain a layer of fat around the liver and causes the liver to malfunction. This stuff is bad news. No kidding. But also the even regular table sugar, sucrose, which also contains other things as well, including fructose and sucrose, also can cause weight gain. Especially as unfortunately both types of sweeteners can cause your weight to explode because all of a sudden the fat goes down on the liver and causes your insulin production to go through the freaking roof. Really bad news. To the point where eventually your pancreas calls it quits, and then you've got type 2 diabetes, and then you're in deep shit. In fact, isn't it surprising that almost only the United States is one of the few countries left in the world that still allows the sale of high fructose corn syrup or corn syrup in anything? In most other countries of the world, high fructose corn syrup is not allowed to be used in any food consumed by human beings. In fact, other countries don't even allow for things such as aspartame as much. However, some do. You can still get Coca-Cola Diet Coke, you still can get Coca-Cola Zero, and they still contain aspartame. Another common sweetener was unblacklisted in the 1980s is saccharin. The one thing that Michelle uses a lot of. Never mind the fact that saccharin is made out of coal tar, it turns out to be of the better of the two. But only by some, because some people are highly sensitive to saccharin. So, if you're going to use saccharin instead of aspartame, please be aware that it's only the better of the two evils, so you might have better luck not using either one. Or for that matter, even using regular table sugar. There's another product called stevia, which I have never actually used, which is supposed to be better than any of them. But I've been around all these different products long enough to seriously question any of these kind of sweeteners, because they're not seen to be any better or any worse than each other. They're all just basically putting the blame on you by making you use something that could still make you sick. After what's going on with the FDA, we seriously wonder if they really understand what is really safe for you. The Centers for Disease Control has admitted that there has been several laboratories that have had access to very dangerous pathogens that have been guilty of improperly managing them, and have decided to close several laboratories after dealing with such things as smallpox and anthrax. About a month ago, the CDC confirmed that a laboratory that was being reassigned for non-use, there was several vials of smallpox that were sitting in storage. I don't know why they were there. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is investigating. Clearly, somebody at one time had the right to work with smallpox. They don't know if the vials are still good. They think the vials may have been there since the 60s. Very interesting. Very indeed interesting. Also, at one of the Centers for Disease Control, even in Atlanta, there were several accusations that even the transporting things such as anthrax may have been improperly done, including sending it to laboratories that are not rated for this highly level 1 bad stuff. So, you gotta watch out for when people start having such control to such drugs. Also, the country of Iraq has confirmed that ISIS has indeed seized control of not only former chemical weapons, including mustard gas and a few other things, at an old weapons depot that was in the process of being decommissioned, but also has access to small levels of nuclear uranium. While it may not be enough to make a nuclear bomb, they said it can certainly make a dirty bomb. And in fact, right now, there's concern as ISIS is growing in force. Speaking of crises, wonderful Netanyahu of Israel is also ensuing his own crisis as he is continuing to do airstrikes and ground attacks against Gaza for reasons that he says that I want to shut down Hamas and get total quiet, and I will do whatever means necessary. Unfortunately, he's also resulted in pissing off the United Nations, which means now there's concern that there may need to be put sanctions in place to stop the access of armaments to either side. The United States has said offered the ability to start a peace agreement between the two, which unfortunately nobody's interested in. Isn't it ironic that originally the United States backed Israel, and now more and more is kind of distancing itself from Israel? It's not really backing Hamas either. No, it's not backing the Palestinians, which that's one of the questions is could the PLO still be launching rockets from Lebanon? According to what I've heard, the answer is yes. In fact, the PLO and Hamas are working together. And don't forget the Syrian uprising of ISIS as well. ISIS has also said that they're going to go ahead and destroy Mecca next. That's Mecca, the birthplace of modern Muslim religion. Very, very sad to see all this type of thing going on. This is going to make a very large Islamic State, as that's what ISIS is now known as, Islamic State or IS. These guys are big time bad news. They're Sunni Muslim, and they are very much in our to devastate all the other Arab brothers and sisters at the expense of nobody. They won't wait. They won't save anybody. They'll destroy everything because they want to have the ultimate clean Muslim regime, which means Israel's in deep shit. Israel's already in deep shit already with the United Nations. Right. In fact, both Russia and the United States have already told Netanyahu that he should just back away from what he's doing because he's not going to win favor with the United Nations. Likewise, they've also offered to give those people in Iraq for the rightful government protect ground troops to protect the rightful Iraqi properties from IS or Islamic State. So I have to see. We got a situation going over there. Yeah, we got a situation over there, but we have situations here in the United States too. We have, for example, in the United States, there is still concern that there may indeed be an uprising against the White House, as President Barack Obama is continuing to say that I am still the supreme dictator, and you can go suck my dick after I take a good piss for myself. Basically, he doesn't want to give up his supreme power as dictator, which means the Congress, under Boehner, has already said we're not going to allow this to continue, and has filed a lawsuit for him of use of power. This also technically means he also has rights to use articles of impeachment, as pointed out by Sarah Palin. But is he going to do that? Nobody knows. I don't even know if way Obama's going. He could easily tell Congress that they're now disbanded. It's happened in other countries. It has happened in other countries because if he declares martial law and it declared said the United States no longer has a Congress, yeah, could be in deep trouble. Also, other countries have agreed to help Eastern Ukraine try to rebuild and restructure to end the bloody situation over there with the forces of Maiden and other things. So there's a lot of things going on worldwide and a lot of things going on here in Connecticut. Yes, not so much here, but let's talk about the Connecticut issues really quick because they are becoming a problem, and we're also going to talk about a similar situation going on in the state of California. The state of California has a law that allows a landlord, when I'm buying a property, to rightfully evict anybody they want, regardless of good terms or bad terms. So these landlords are taking advantage of this law, called the Hill Law, to actually force, once they buy a property, to evict all the tenants, renovate the property, have new tenants come in, check up the rents, and then basically they move on, they evict those tenants again, and the new landlord takes over, resulting in a giant revolving door of people having no place to go as rents go through the fucking roof. The same is happening in Connecticut, but not quite as drastically, as the rents are going through the roof because landlords' taxes are going up, prices of mortgages are going up, as long as everything else. Yet, the income among low-income people is just not increasing enough to accompany the higher interest rates, an inflationary trend that's going on in Connecticut. A typical apartment in Connecticut now, for a one-bedroom apartment in Connecticut, easily can be $700, $800, and that's without heat and hot water included. If you have heat and hot water included in your rent, you easily can pay $850 to $900 a month, just for a one-bedroom efficiency. Really scary. The homeless population in the city of Winston is exploding as more and more people are finding themselves in the streets. But since Winston's mostly a wooded area, they're actually going to the woods. One gentleman has offered a place for people to stay on his property, which is his private property, with no charge, no rent, no nothing. Again, this is one gentleman that's doing a favor for a huge tract of land he has. But however, are other people doing the same thing? We don't know. But I will give him a high five for at least doing that. Although, unfortunately, he doesn't want the people to stay there in the wintertime when it's cold because he doesn't want to be stuck with having to deal with people freezing to death. Which means that in the wintertime, the people are still being displaced and have no place to go. So, it's going to still sucks for them because they have no place to go. The only way to solve this problem is one of two things. One of which has already been done just recently, is to create more low-income housing, or more precisely, middle-income housing in town. Unfortunately, it doesn't solve the low-income needs. So, those people coming to Winston looking for low-income housing ain't gonna find any. Their income is too low, even if they're working, if they could find a job in Winston to pay the rent, which is often a whole month's worth of wages, in some cases, especially for a part-time job. This really creates problems, and Winston is certainly not the only town. Other towns in this area are also facing the same concern. How can you put people up if they can't afford to pay the rent? That's where sometimes people, such as beneficiaries, such as non-charitable organizations, to even some small business operations that are willing to do this first as a community effort, as well as I said, charitable organizations such as the Red Cross and United Way need to step up to provide more housing. And in addition to that, the state of Connecticut governments also need to encourage landlords to rent to lower income people as well. But the sad truth is a lot of landlords don't want to rent to low income people because a lot of these people are involved with drugs and alcohol. At this point, because of the way the laws are written, they could be held accountable, especially if it's using illegal drugs such as Schedule 1s. However, there is questions now, but I would like to ask about the state of California. I mean, state of Colorado, if I may, which is this. If you're on Section 8 housing in the state of California, which has lots of recreational drug use, are you allowed to use marijuana in your apartment if it's on Section 8? That seems to be a very, very catch-22, because on the state level it says yes, but since that's being run by a federal program, the law may actually say no. So to save yourself from the potential being evicted because you violated federal law, you might as well not. The same would be applied true for Connecticut if you have a medicinal marijuana permit, because obviously the federal law says it's not allowed to be used. Why doesn't more states follow the trends of Washington and Oregon and just legalize marijuana outright? It's not really any worse than tobacco. It's certainly no worse than alcohol. If anything, it's actually maybe a little better for you. The war on drugs has been a dismal disaster and has failed to solve or curb any drug use. It's true, it has. So anyway, guys, that's the news for the time being. And of course, I'm MicheleMarieDalene, and I'm Lumi and finished up. Oh, you want to tell them about Patreon? I certainly will. I forgot about that. We are now on Patreon as well. We'd love to have your support. So you can contact our Patreon site at http://www.patreon.com/BICHELA and make a donation to our efforts to provide you with timely news, views, and information that hopefully will be of use to you and your friends and family. And of course, if you don't want to go through Patreon to make a donation, you can always make a donation to BICHELA3 at yahoo.com through PayPal, and that will also get us some donations. So that's mail. What is it? It's BICHELA3 at yahoo.com is email address, and that's www.paypal.com. So you can choose either way to make a donation. You can also mail a check too to BIC or MicheleMarieDalene /LUMI space FINISTRA 112 Main Street, apartment number 9 in Winsted, Connecticut. That's WINSTED. State CT and the zip code is 06098. We would prefer a money order because checks unfortunately become vulcanized rubber, especially because I don't know how good your finances are in this time of need. We don't really need much. We also could use more computer equipment. We could also use more studio gear as well. So there's a lot of things we need, and we could really use your support to help us to continue to enhance and improve our products as we go every day. But for right now, I want to thank you all for watching this broadcast, and we hope you like and share, comment and subscribe, and either, if you feel like or dislike, you know what to do. That's right. So don't forget. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.